Good morning, everybody. It's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question, which I'll flip in here. And they basically want to know, do transgender athletes have some sort of advantage in sports? And if they do, what are those advantages? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, do a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about it. All right, guys, what I want to talk about with this is going to be purely related to the sports and biology end of this. I'm not going to discuss politics. I'm not going to discuss social theory or anything else because honestly, this is my fitness channel. It's not relevant to the topic. That's the sort of stuff I would discuss more on my firearm and politics channel. But this one is absolutely a fitness and sports related question, and it's something I've covered a little bit before in the past. Now, when it comes to advantages, do they have an intrinsic advantage in sports? Only the male to female. What people need to understand, when people have come in and manipulated this, it is done for political reasons, not actual biological reasons. You get a medical doctor or a sports physician to discuss this, and they're not going to agree with what certain sports bodies have done and certain governments have said on this, because the simple reality is these people are basing their things on politics. They're basing the stuff on opinion, not the way the human body actually works. So as far as advantages go, yeah, they absolutely have an advantage in the case of males converting to females. The other direction, females converting to males, are going to be at a disadvantage. So much of a disadvantage that when it comes to the Olympics, even a female who's undergone the surgery who could have been a medal-winning athlete in the Olympics is probably going to struggle to be competitive at all. She's going to struggle to be on the field competing against men, even with the full hormone replacement therapy and surgeries and everything involved. She is no longer going to be competitive because what people need to understand, the differences between men and women in terms of athletic performance are not just about late in life changes in hormone levels and hormone replacement therapy. While those things are important, they do matter, that's not the primary reasons. People need to understand that there are genetic and structural differences between males and females, meaning what you're going to find is that simply being born with an XY, which is what males are, versus an XX, which is what females are, makes changes early in life even before you hit puberty. You'll notice certain things like girls tend to grow a little faster when they're younger, but boys do display a difference in strength pound for pound when younger. And it has to do with the fact that men are born with more muscle fibers in their entire upper body. It's not just about muscle mass, it's about total muscle fibers. Now, females are born with similar amounts to males on a pound per pound basis, but you do find some major differences there. So what do we mean by the differences? What's going on here? All right. The other difference is that females also have more fat cells through their body, and this is where we're going to run into big problems. Let's say all other factors being equal, and we remove hormones from the equation completely later in life. Well, we don't even need to do that, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself. All right, so basically, men have thicker bone structures, slightly thicker bone structures that we develop, particularly when we start to hit puberty. We're born with more total muscle fibers in our upper body. All right, more total muscle fibers and less total fat cells. What that means is that when we hit puberty, men tend to fill out more on their upper body. We get more bone density. We have more bone in certain muscles and things in our body. So you get into a contact sport, and that's the thing that Joe Rogan brought up with the Fallon Fox fight. Men, even when their hormone levels are brought down to female levels, we are going to hit harder. Our punches and our elbows are going to produce more force, and they're going to be more devastating due to permanent changes in bone structure. Men generally have, and I know there are exceptions, but the exceptions don't matter because athletes are rarely the exception as far as being non-gifted. People who are non-gifted don't become good athletes. But with the men, yeah, we are going to strike harder. We're going to be harder strikers. When it comes to anything that involves speed and power, what we also find is that men tend to beat women flat out. And examples, pull the Olympic numbers, go pull numbers for Olympic sprinting. or pull numbers for the 100 meter or the 200 meter or the 400 meter for runners. Go pull the times and the numbers and compare the women in all the different classes who won the medals, the gold, the silver, and the bronze. Then go compare them to the men's times and see where those gold medalists would place. They're going to be the low end of the field. They're not going to break the top 10. They're not going to break the top 20. Men are faster than women. We produce more power, we have more speed, we have more strength, even on a pound per pound basis. Now, when people undergo hormone replacement therapy, some of that changes a little bit, but it doesn't change everything. Men are still going to have the potential to be leaner than women due to fewer fat cells. And even when hormones come into the mix, if you take a woman, put her on TRT, male hormone replacement therapy, put her on testosterone, she is still going to struggle to be at the same body composition men are going to be at, which means at a given body weight for any given weight class, even with the replacement therapy, she's going to struggle to have the same body composition a male will. He is going to tend to have less fat and more muscle. That's almost unavoidable. The same thing with men the other way. You take a man and you put him on estrogen, and you, again, they go through a surgery so that he produces less testosterone. Men are still going to produce more testosterone than women, even if they've been castrated. They're going to produce more testosterone. So he's still going to have more testosterone than a female. It's going to be much, much lower, but it's still going to be higher than most females. He's still going to be stronger and faster because those differences in bone structure and those differences in muscle fibers and muscle fiber distribution and fat cell distribution are going to be different. He is on a pound for pound basis in the same weight class, say 154 pounds. Two genetically similar males and females. He is going to be able to run faster. He is going to be able to punch harder. He is going to be able to lift more weight. And he will have more muscle if he leans down. And again, people who are in weight classes, they tend to stay fairly lean so that they can be competitive. Well, a man, his body fat percentage when you DEXA it, even after the hormone replacement therapy, is going to have the potential for a better body composition at the same body weight as a female. So he's going to have less fat, he's going to have more muscle, he's going to have denser bones. And you're still going to find that it's going to put them at a tremendous disadvantage. The woman is basically, in order to beat a transgender male, male to female, in any of these sports, as far as speed and power goes, she is going to have to be more genetically gifted and talented than him, and is probably going to have to work harder than him with better training to beat him. If all factors are equal, meaning they both were similarly genetically gifted and talented, they put in the same amount of work, the same amount of years, he is still probably going to beat her by 5 to 10% in terms of performance. So this is the problem we run into. We're throwing them in here based upon social policy. We're essentially taking males, allowing them to become females for their choice, but then compete against real females. And you can argue all day long socially what constitutes gender, but when we're on a performance playing field, that's called cheating. That is cheating. And I'm not saying that people decide to become transgender so that they can cheat at a sport, but it's irrelevant. It's still cheating. That would be no different than me just deciding, or anyone deciding, that they identify with using large amounts of anabolic steroids and performance-enhancing drugs, and then allowing it based upon social reasons and laws, allowing them to go compete against and not require any drug testing for them, and have them compete against athletes that are tested every single day and who aren't allowed to use them. It is a clear advantage. Does it mean they're going to win every time? No, because sometimes the male doesn't have the same genetic gifts and talent. But if he does, he's going to win. And yeah, it creates a clear advantage. And again, it comes down to differences in body composition, differences in muscle fiber, total muscle fibers in the body, and you can't change that. A surgery and hormone replacement therapy is not going to change that. It's not going to make the extra muscle fibers the male has go away. It's not going to make the thickness in certain bones or his bone density go away. And that's the problem. And they can argue about it all they want from politics and a social perspective, but it really has no place in sports as far as fair play goes. It's really absurd that we are allowing a social issue like this to create unfairness in sports. And really, it comes down to something that I've said before, is that I think this is intended to get women out of sports. This is to basically a social agenda, and the feminists should be screaming about this, to remove women from sports. It's basically telling women you're not good enough to be in sports, and so we can't just replace you with men who choose to become women instead of allowing you to compete. Your place is not on a playing field, is basically what it's saying. You know, after we went through all these years of women's rights to give women the right to compete in sports, have their own classes and be competitive and be able to go to prestigious things like the Olympics, this really does undo a lot of that, because it puts women back at a disadvantage, and they're no longer on a level playing field competing against other natural born women. And again, it's nonsense, and it has no place in sports. And I think, honestly, it completely dishonors sports, and I think it's completely disrespectful to female athletes. And again, so I have a real problem with this from a fairness in sports perspective. And from an integrity in sports perspective, this absolutely destroys that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.